Hey everyone, welcome back to Tallulah Talks. I hope you had a good Christmas and a good New Year. This is my first video of 2023, and today we are going to focus on the legend of Bloody Mary. There are a few legends that tie in with this. It's not just based off of one, it's based off of quite a few, depending on, like the year and the era. And then we're also going to talk about some stories about Bloody Mary. So some people that may have tried the ritual and then supposedly seen Mary in the mirror. I have never tried the ritual myself. I'm not brave enough to do that. But if you have done that and you have any stories about that, definitely leave it in the comments down below. And let's just get started. So, like I said, it does have a few different legends. But one of the legends that I found really interesting and that kind of mostly ties in with it would be the story of Mary Worth. And she was believed to be a witch. I'm not sure of the year because I couldn't find that in my research. But I imagine it was when like the Salem witch trials were going on, so like the 1600s maybe. And like I said, many believe the legend is based off of Mary Worth. So she was thought to be a witch because she lived like a very remote lifestyle in the forest in like a small cabin. She didn't live like everyone else. She didn't live within the village. I don't think she really interacted with anyone that much either. And that kind of caused people to believe that she was a witch just because she was a little bit different. But not only that, she was also known to sell like little trinkets and herbal remedies for if people were sick, they would come to her and buy off of her and they would maybe just help. But in those times, that would kind of be one of the signs that you were a witch. The locals were very wary of her and they had like this fear that she would curse them for some reason, but I'm not sure what made them think this other than the fact that they believed she was a witch. Those who bought from her were actually also shunned within the village, so whoever bought the tinctures and herbal remedies of her, no one spoke to them because they had been in contact with a supposed witch. At this time, it was kind of also found that small girls would go missing from their homes, and villagers had looked everywhere and they just could not find these little girls. And to them, the only conclusion that they could come to at the time was that Mary had something to do with this. A few did venture towards her cabin within the woods. However, Mary always denied knowledge of the disappearances, but the villagers continued to be very suspicious. And also at this time, again, there's like no evidence of this, but just going off of what I could find, it was said that her haggard appearance kind of changed when these girls went missing very drastically, and instead of being haggard, she was now young and youthful, and again that kind of spurred on the suspicions from the villagers. This story then continues and involving the local miller's daughter, and it was kind of bizarre. Like the girl had heard some kind of noise, and only she could seem to hear it, and she just followed this noise in like a trance-like state, and the mother had seen her and I guess tried calling her name, but the girl just didn't respond at all. And so the mum actually was also using Mary's trinkets and things, so she was known to Mary. So at this point, the miller's wife became very scared and called her husband, and then they both followed and shouted for their daughter. But again, the daughter just would not respond. So the daughter at this point was following this unseen source to her parents, but to her it was like a noise, like maybe calling to her. And she was just following this, and with the help of the villagers farmer, they noticed that there was a light, or like a sort of beacon, within the woods. As they were approaching and getting closer to the forest, the farmer and the miller apparently noticed that Mary was standing in a clearing next to a very specific looking oak tree. It was said that she was holding a wand and pointing this towards the miller's home, and this was said to be glowing with an unnatural light, and this is what the daughter was heading straight towards. When the villagers saw what the woman was doing, they charged at her with pitchforks and guns. This then broke the spell on the miller's daughter, and she was kind of confused, and she actually fled the scene back home, I assume. The farmer at this point loaded his gun and shot Mary in the hip, and she was caught screaming, and she was then tied to the stake, and a bonfire was quickly built so that they could burn the witch. As she was burning, it was said that Mary cast a curse on the village, and basically she had said that if they spoke her name in a mirror, she would be back. It is said that her spirit would return to get her revenge, and once Mary was gone, the villagers stormed her house to look for the missing children. At one point, they did find unmarked graves, and they guessed that she had used the children's blood as a way to keep herself young, which would explain the change in her apparently haggard appearance. So in terms of the ritual, I think a lot of people know, or like when I was younger, the ritual tended to be you switch the light off, you look in the mirror, you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and she apparently appears in the mirror. Again, I have never done this. I'm not brave enough to do that. But yeah, so that is what's commonly known, that you'll summon her spirit. And the story goes that she will take your soul, ripping your soul to shreds and burning it in the process. And your soul will then spend eternity trapped in the mirror alongside Mary. There is 2 other legends. So one of the legends is based on Elizabeth Bathory, and the legend could possibly be based off of her, because it was said that she would kill her slaves and like bathe in their blood to make herself younger, and that is where one of the stories of Bloody Mary originated. But the second legend, the third legend, is also based on Queen Mary I of England, because she was responsible for the burning of over 300 Protestants, and that is where the name comes from. And this was because she wanted to attempt to make England more Catholic. It was said throughout her life that she had a false pregnancy. She actually looked pregnant at the time, and she claimed to be able to feel the fetus move around. Closer to the pregnancy, she was bedridden, and unfortunately the baby never came, and just all of a sudden her belly went down. I think that's maybe known as like a phantom pregnancy these days. However, a short time after, in 1558, it is thought that she might have been pregnant again. However, she kept it quiet this time, just in case things went wrong. However, again, it was a false pregnancy, and she actually died in the middle of it, and this in turn gave her the name Bloody Mary. But again, none of that is to do with a mirror, so for me, I would go with the legend of Mary Worth, because it involves a mirror and things. So there is other legends of the ritual. There's different ways to perform it. So another one of these stories is that if you say her name 13 times in a mirror, she will appear. And the practice has continued to grow across generations and across cultures. And you will hear Bloody Mary pretty much everywhere. There's been movies made about it, and in Paranormal Activity 3, one of the children and the guy say it in the mirror, and the guy ends up with scratches down his back. there's not anyone who hasn't heard of Bloody Mary. In 2014, researchers actually looked into the psychology and a history behind the legend, and this in turn actually added more credibility to the story and possibly proving that the supernatural actually exists. There were hauntings at her home as well, like during her time and then after. And so this is based on one of the other legends, not Mary Worth, just one of the other legends. The home is said to be a blue home dating back to the 1800s, and it is the residence of one of the Marys. According to some legends, the home was already said to be quite haunted when Mary lived there. There were spirits that were said to roam the house, and they were known to be untrustworthy men. And according to the legend, Mary was said to have set a boundary between the spirit realm and her. Sources also say that there were spirits in the attic and they were sealed away with holy oil. We're not sure who did that. It might have been Mary herself. One story states that originally, if you walked, so going back to the mirror, if you walked backwards up the stairs in the dark, and you just happened to go past a mirror, you would either see your soulmate or a skull, and if you saw a skull, it meant that you were going to die. There have been many encounters with this ghost, and so we're going to talk about some of those. So there was a young woman or a young girl called Marissa, and she and her friend had been watching I guess some sort of documentary, and Marissa really or something to do with Bloody Mary, and Marissa really wanted to scare her friend, and so she in turn then played the Bloody Mary game. Apparently at the time of doing it, no ghost appeared to Marissa, so she then took herself to a different room, did it in a different mirror, and again, she didn't really see anything, so she was obviously disappointed. And then at this point, she took herself to the bathroom. She then closed the door and switched the lights off, did the ritual, and it said that as she switched the lights on, she saw something out of the corner of her eye, and when she sort of turned to look closer, she saw a woman with her mouth wide open as if in like that she was screaming, but it was deathly quiet. The woman then lifted her hands, and Marissa saw blood dripping down her hands, and she felt hands grab her from behind, and at that point she did run from the room. I'm not sure what happened afterwards. Like I said, I just found these stories online, because like I said, many people have tried this. It's in movies and it differs like what you will see. Another incident involved a trio of friends, Sarah, Gail and Missy, on Friday the 13th, which is commonly known to be kind of like a day of bad luck. And you've got the movies Friday the 13th, which are horror anyway. The girls had been talking about Bloody Mary and they decided to try out the ritual. All three got candles and set them up in the bathroom, which was, I assume the lights were off, and they waited until 2:55 a.m. because 3 a.m. is said to be the witching hour where spirits are usually quite active. They chanted 13 times into the mirror, and according to all three, Mary appeared in smoke in the mirror. All three screamed, turning the lights back on, but at this point the ghost had completely disappeared. And that is the legend of Bloody Mary. There are probably more stories out there of people doing the game and seeing her spirit and their experiences, and if you have any experiences when you've done the ritual, definitely leave them in the comments below. I have heard of people doing this, but then I'm really skeptical whether to believe that they saw anything, because you know, people want to scare you all the time. But I just found it really interesting that it came from 3 different legends. No one really knows like the sort of real story of where it came from. But for me, I believe it's Mary Worth, just because it involves a mirror. She was a witch at the time, and she used children's blood to make her more youthful. But their Bloody Mary is like, it's so famous. Like, there's it's in American Horror Story. They've made movies. It's in the Paranormal Activity movies. And everyone around the world has heard of it. And it's just one of those things where we just don't know where it came from. And if this is the kind of content you like, definitely hit that subscribe button. I am here usually every Saturday for Saturday's Haunting Hour, and every Wednesday for Killer Wednesday, where we discuss the psychology that possibly explains serial killer actions or killers' actions. And I will see